80 looking forward to even training more and more people. So it's such an honor to be here, to be speaking to freelancers and just sharing a bit from my journey. So thank you so much, Andrew, for organizing. Thank you to the entire team who put in all the time. I've looked at the program and it's structured really well. Those of you who are consistently showing up for these equipping sessions are going to get so much out of them, because you're touching on all aspects of freelancing and you're not winging it like most of us had to the times we were figuring these things out as we went along. Allow me to send some greetings. I'm here with the leader of the Council Code Foundation. He's the Learning and Development Lead, Mr. Roland Sankara. It's good to have you here. And we have a few other people from the Council family, so it's good to see a number of them here. Good to see you, Alice. We also have Cinderella, and also good to see, today I'm speaking primarily in a bit of the capacity as the lead of Straightforward Financial Growth, which is a company that trains on personal finances. And in our midst, we have someone who leads us in the operation side there. That is Shifra, is with us right here. Good to see you. I hear some people talking about the sound. If the sound gets a bit some way, then I can make some adjustments. Good to see you, Cedric, as well. And good to see us. Good to see you, Esther, Isaac, Emma, Joshua, Kajambo, Joshua, Innocent, Lovis, Lydia. Good to see all of you, and even those who are joining us as we go along. Sylvia, Sumaya, very glad to see a number of ladies in this space. Andrew mentioned that a bit there's tech and creative, and it's really exciting to see ladies in these spaces. The representation generally is usually not too good, ladies in tech spaces. So it's very exciting to see all of you here. Thank you for coming out. And to start this off, I'll share, yes, a bit about my journey. And then I will ask us to share a bit on our expectations, because given the time we have together, I'd want to focus our time primarily on the things that are pertinent to where you are in your journey. So yes, I'll share, but just to set the tone, I'll ask for a bit of your expectations, and then I'll get into the presentation. Then I'll try to make time for your questions at the tail end. So you're all very welcome. So a bit about my journey. I'm Peter Kakoma, and I studied electrical engineering in school. That's university. I went to MOOC, but somewhere along the way, I got interested and fascinated with software engineering. So I started to tinker, really is more the word, to try and explore how do I get into this field. The internet wasn't as readily available as it is today. If you're having challenges accessing the internet now, it was a lot more hectic accessing it all those years ago when I was starting out. So it's not 1986. Tell your neighbor it's not 1986. It's a while ago, but it's not 1986. So in my second year specifically is when I got an opportunity to go and intern. It's a 4-year course, and in second year you get to intern. So I chose specifically to intern with a company that was in the web development space, and that's where now I got to start to build. And at the time I was building with PHP and with WordPress specifically. It was a small farm that I was a part of. It was 3 people, and I was the fourth person as an intern. And so I got to learn the ropes really as an intern. And maybe one of the first things, I know the other aspects I've covered a lot of things, but for me, one of the things that helped me get grounded in freelancing, if I can call it that, was that internship, because I got to learn a bit of the fundamental aspects, some of which have been covered in this session up till now. So I got to learn a bit about project management, a bit about managing client expectations and things like that, all which are very key in freelancing. So when I eventually then got another opportunity in third year, this time with MTN, still as an intern, that's where I was for a while. Went through the internship, applied for a role there when one showed up, and then got to work when I eventually finished school and applied, and thankfully got a role there. So while my path might not necessarily be seen as freelancing, especially initially, because I had a full-time job with MTN. After working there for a while, I was able to start Kanzu Code Limited. That was in 2014 is when it was registered. And so I, in a sense, then started to step a bit more into the world of freelancing in the sense that, yes, I had a full-time job, but I also had now this company that was finding work from various individuals, companies, and the goal was to deliver and to find a way to do it profitably and sustainably. And I burnt my fingers a lot. I remember I think our first year, our overall revenue back then in year one, I think was like 500,000. And even in 2014, that wasn't much. It wasn't revenue you can quite speak of. It shouldn't even be called revenue. But it was also largely influenced by the way I saw business. For me, it was just pursuing passion, and I wasn't as deliberate about pricing. Yeah, so as pricing terribly as pricing, primarily based on how long do I think this thing will take me to do, and then many times I would underestimate the work. You've shared that a number of us here are in tech, so I would underestimate the work. Even the creatives, I know that this is a pain point even for the creatives. Many times you will likely underestimate how long it will take you to create something. Even if it's writing a blog article, you might think it will take you 2 hours, and then 2 days later, you are still pulling out a bit of hair because you haven't yet finished it. So an underestimate, and to take a bit much longer. And then also there will be a number of changes after I've delivered the work. So I struggled quite a bit with that, especially considering also I had a full-time job that I had to deliver at and focus on as my main thing. So didn't have much in terms of finances in year one. Year two wasn't even different. I think year two, we now start, because by year two, I think, was it year two? I think it's year two or year three that I brought on someone. And so from being a single freelancer to now having first and a partner, someone I'd gone to school with, we started working together. And then third, we brought on someone else, all software engineers. And so what was initially bad now went to worse, because if you are mismanaging as an individual freelancer, mismanaging finances as an individual freelancer, bringing on more people who have the same skill set, the same way of seeing certain things, including finances, might only aggravate the issue. And in my case, it did, because I was the one leading, and so things went from bad to worse. I think in year 2 or 3, when we now had more people on board, we went from the what I can call revenue of 500 to making a huge loss. I think the loss was of possibly over 20 M. And I mean, that loss could only be, the business could absorb that loss because I had a full-time job and I was financing it. I'm sharing a bit of context, a bit of numbers, because I know there are some freelancers here who will relate with some of these aspects. When we are talking finance, it's not good to leave things up in the air hanging. So I'm sharing a bit of numbers just so you get a bit of some things, some quotable points. Yeah. So that's where the journey started for me. In managing finances, in freelancing, if you will, and all the things that come with that. One of the advantages, though, is that even as I share these, I actually know the numbers, because I was tracking the numbers. So I had this Excel sheet where I was tracking, this is what has come in, this is what has gone out. And I was trying to be as diligent as possible in doing that. And that was really useful, because one of the downsides of being a freelancer is sometimes you do not know that you're actually losing money, that you're taking on a job, but you're going to lose money doing it. Or you're selling a creative piece, but you're losing money doing it. Or when you're pricing, you're only going to price based on maybe your transport and airtime and maybe a bit of labor, yet you don't realize that there are a lot of other things that you've not factored in, and they're going to cause you lose money in the process. So, okay, so someone will help us just do the muting. So those are some of the things that I had to start to learn, getting into this and going on the freelance journey. Thank you. So those were some of the things that I had to grapple with early on in the journey, and then start to expose myself to information, to people, to then start to see things a bit differently, to start be a bit more diligent in tracking, and to start pursuing growth in that area. So the journey from that point, the freelancing stopped being just an individual. More and more people came into the company, and we had to and it's still a journey really, to get better at pricing, to get better at sourcing good work, to get better at rejecting some work. Yeah, that's also part of this thing. To now, in a case like me, as Andrew shared, I'm a minister, I'm a pastor, so also choosing which work we cannot do, work that maybe promotes certain things that we don't believe in. So choosing not to take on that work, choosing to work a certain way, choosing not to oil certain institutions and things like that, but just choosing which freelance work to take on and which one not to, and also trying to be consistent in delivery and purposing to try and grow, and also trying to then get referrals. The largest part of the work that Kanzu Code has done over the past few years has been from referrals. It's only recently that we're now starting to take steps, deliberate steps in starting to do over advertising and things of that nature. But the work has been primarily driven by referrals from the work that we've done for clients who've gone on to refer us to other people. So I wanted to just set that stage. I've not gone into so much detail, but I wanted to just give a bit of that background of my own journey, just to give you a bit of a picture of how what it's been like freelancing, if you will, and really it's still a space I'm in. But while I freelance, the vehicle I use is the businesses, freelancing as a business. So I'm going to just pause there and get some expectations. What do you hope to hear about? Maybe Andrew will help me coordinate just for 3-5 minute stops. If you can hear from 2 or 3 people, just expectations. What would you hope I cover? Then I'll now do the diving. And I see some comments already coming through. Thank you, Innocent, there. Understanding the language of finance, profits margin. Thank you so much. So let's just send in those. What do you expect to hear? And then I will pick up 17:32. So in about 3 minutes. Let me give you just a bit more time. Yes, over to you, Andrew, to coordinate.
Yeah, so let's get the expectations right. It's going to help the facilitator to know which direction he should take. Let's pull information out of him. Just put your expectations in the chat. Or if you can't express yourself through writing, unmute and speak. Yeah, I'll be reading them as they come. But also you can unmute and speak or raise your hand or write in the chat. Whatever makes it easy for you, and then we flow. Yes, Barista.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. My expectation is on how do I get the customers, especially in a market that is very competitive, and I'm just a starter. I'm not known anywhere, but as a freelancer, how do I get my client? Thank you.
Okay, how to get customers or clients in a competitive market. Let me write it down. Okay, meanwhile, I can be reading all the others. Yeah, Kamali said the language of finance, profit margin, gross returns, key terms in finance, really. Israel talks about knowing how to get the first customer. Laban talks about untrustworthy customers that are not loyal. Grace talks about bad pricing. And then, yeah, of course, Barista also talked about clients in a competitive market. So keep the move coming in the chat, or you ask. Yeah, I think that those can give us a starting point. Trevor talks about investment and shares. I think something to do with equity. Isaac talks about knowing the worth of his gigs. I think it's pricing. Yeah, so the language is pricing, customer, financial language, competition. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a longer one here. Reynolds is a software developer looking to raise capital. What strategies do you recommend to attract finance? Then, if once he has gotten the capital, what are the effective strategies for growth? And then finally, what options are available for someone starting with no collateral? Then Sylvia is asking about what it takes to become a freelancer for an activity that you may not experience, you may not be experienced in, but are passionate about. She says she's a writer, she's passionate about writing, and gigs usually are for more experienced writers. Yeah, so I was expecting more focused technical questions, but they are coming generic, which is also good. It means people are thinking outside the box. I think this can give us direction, or we ask a few more.
Yeah, no, this is good direction. Thank you. Thank you so much for the questions. Thank you, Roman, Isaac, Trevor, Barrister, who shared yours. Janet, your hand was up at some point, but I think you put it down. Likely someone asked it. So let's get into it.
No, I could still ask.
All right.
I could still ask if you can hear me. Thank you very much for the presentation. I was told that I'm a hoarder when it comes to stocking my items. I stock quite a lot, and I envision that I wanted to ensure that I supply any need that a customer may have. And I wanted to know, when do you stop? When do you stop and say it's enough? Your stock is enough. Let the profit show. Versus you wanting to ensure that you're versatile to the people that are coming to you. Thank you. I hope I'm understood.
Yeah. When are you overstocked? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, then lastly, there's a technical question. I think it's from a software engineering perspective from Malinda. She's asking, what languages do you recommend for someone to focus on? I don't know whether this is software or business. Alinda, maybe you'll give us more, but I think you're talking about.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for the questions, and I'm going to do my best to touch on all of them, including the one on software from Alinda. All right. Okay, so this is good direction. So let me start with the finance aspect, and then all the others will spew from there. Yeah, so first, as a freelancer, you will likely start out as an individual. You're maybe some of you, that's where you are. You're an individual freelancer. Maybe there's no team, there's no business, there's no registered business. You are the man, you are the woman with the key. Yeah, so you're the freelancer, where you and your laptop are, whether you're writing, whether you're coding, whatever it is, whether you're creative, you're editing, you are the woman with the key. So the first thing is that even in that state, you need to track your freelance work as a business. You need to see it as a business and track it that way. A business is an entity that's offering value to someone else in exchange and is being paid for giving value to that other person. And you're paid for delivering value. The value might be that you've styled someone's hair and they are happy, they look better, or you write their social media copy for them. Whatever it is, the mere fact that you are delivering value to an individual, a company, you are in business. And so even as we get to speak about finances, that mindset needs to be, you need to have that mindset on. Because without that, you will not, it will be hard for you to separate where you've received money from your mom who sent you some money because she has noticed that your lips are constantly dry, and so you might not be asking for the money, but she realizes my daughter, my son needs some money. So if you don't separate that income that you've received from the income you've received from doing that gig, it will be hard for you to know whether the gig things you're doing are profitable. I hope that makes sense. Because as a business, you're going to get, I'm going to use the word business, but look at it as you're an individual, you're a freelancer. As a freelancer in business, you're going to get money from different places. You're going to get income from different places. And that income, you need to track whether you are doing stuff profitably, whether you are investing more than is coming out from the business. And I touched on it, especially if you're into something that you're passionate about. When you're into something you're passionate about, you can even do it for free. But if you have a landlord and you also have food to eat, it means that even though you want to do it for free, it would be tricky in the long run if you kept doing it for free. Yeah, so you should get paid for that freelance thing you're doing. So that's step one, that you want to separate, you want to track the finances of the freelance business as separate from your personal finances. I know that might seem strange, but that's the way you're going to track whether this freelance business is actually making money. That freelance business is separate from you, even though you might be the only one in it. I hope that step one makes sense. And I want to drum in right from there. That way, even if you move from being the single person in the freelance business to now you have 2, 3, 4 people, you can still track whether that particular freelance business is profitable, separate from you as an individual. So that's step one. So with step one out of the way, which is what's referred to as the separation principle, I can now get into the next thing, where I'll also now touch a bit on the technical bits in this flow. I won't get too technical, but I think I'll try and give us the foundational pieces so that at least you're able to track, are things okay or are things not okay? Because sometimes we're tracking whether things are okay based on whether you've paid rent and whether you've been able to go to CJ's twice a month. Yeah, and buy Valentine's gifts and things like that. But that doesn't show whether things are okay or not in the business. That's just a result. It's not a symptom. Yeah, so the separation principle is really, really key. So building on that, I'm going to just share my screen to just show you and walk you through a tool I developed that I think might be useful in you just doing this tracking. Because the moment you talk finances, one, you've talked about separation. Two, you need to track the money. You need to track the money. Yeah. So if you are into pen and paper, do that. I recommend using Google Sheets. I feel it is a free tool, and I feel it's quite user friendly, and you can access it on your phone, on a computer, and it will also do a lot of stuff for you automatically, which pen and paper might not. And also it's automatically backed up. So You want to track your finances. You need to track the finances. So that's rule 2 in freelancing. Track the money, because then then it will start to tell you whether you're profitable or not. You can't rely on any one of those other things that I mentioned. And I feel this tool here, it's a free tool. I'll just share a link to where I even go into further depth in explaining about it. A lot further than I'll be able to in this session here. But suffice to say, in this particular session, track the money. Track the money. I'm ramming this in because I sense that for many of us as freelancers, this might not be something we're doing. So I'm just laying emphasis on here on this, because a lot of the other questions we've talked about, many of the answers will still come down to this. What's the money saying? Especially if we're looking at this as a business. Yeah, it's a business. If it's a business, it needs to make money. Yeah, if it's something else, if it's a charity, that is a discussion for another place. But if it's a business, it needs to make money. And for you to know whether it's making money, you need to track. And this, I believe, is a good tool to start out tracking with. So what are you doing with this tool? All you're doing is you're tracking all the income and expenses related to the freelance business. Yeah, it will become a bit clearer, but let's keep going. So for example, the freelance business that you are a part of, you can start to keep track of the different things. In this case, maybe your business hasn't gotten to the place where you're renting something, so you might not have utilities and things like that. But maybe you've bought notebooks. There's something you are doing for a particular client and you needed to buy notebooks. You notice that as a freelancer, that's money you would have just spent, yet it's actually money you're spending specifically for the business. Yeah, so just track all the income and the expenses specifically around the business. So you do that if maybe someone if you're into, maybe this example puts a lot of different things in here, but imagine we're working with a business, a freelancer that is into, I don't know what's a pertinent example here, but maybe this person is in the creative space and they're into editing. So they get work from customers. Maybe they pay for some editing tool, Grammarly. They pay for Grammarly. So if you're paying for Grammarly, that's an expense, a business. It's a freelance business expense. So you'd add it here. If, I don't know, you go and get a friend to do some extra research for you because the work was too much, and so you subcontracted some of it to them, you add it here because that's a freelance business expense. If you had to buy a data bundle to do the work, that's a freelance business expense. Yeah. If you had to, I don't know, you had to transport yourself to and from the client's place, and then when you went to see the client, you met at a restaurant and you had to pay for your own meal. Those are freelance business expenses. I hope it's making sense, because when you eventually come back to evaluate, was that job profitable? You're looking at all the expenses that went into that particular job. It includes the border you took there, the lunch you paid for, the internet you bought, all those things. Yeah. I hope it's fitting together. That person you subcontracted to, all those are freelance business expenses. So you just keep track of them here. And then when the person pays or the company pays, you track it in income. So for example, you could say today's 18th, border to, I don't know where, That's an expense, so it would show up in here to be an expense of 15K. I don't know where you are coming from to pay 15K for border. And then this, just keeping track of whether that is. And then the transaction types, these you can change them to whatever you want by coming here, specifying the transaction types. But it's the transaction, it's either an income or an expense. And so for like transport, that would be this one. That would be travel and accommodation. And then here you'd put who is the money from or who is it going to. Yeah, so you can fill that in. So in the simplest form, this is what you'd be keeping track of in your finances as in the freelance aspect of the business. Yeah, so then also as income comes in, you track that as well. And then also it's very helpful to budget as a freelance business. Not all these aspects will be applicable to you, but it's key because why the budget aspect? Because you're looking at yourself as a business. Businesses budget, at least any business that is worth its salt does budgets. And businesses don't budget for 1 month. They budget at the very least for a year and many times even longer than that. Yeah, so even you, for your freelance business, at the very least have a budget. What are your target incomes for a 6-month period? So yes, you're into editing and maybe you're paid a certain amount of money for every editing gig. How many editing gigs do you want to get? Yeah, so make a projection that I want to get 5 between now and the end of the year. So add that to your budget. Then these are the ones that I want to get. This is when I want them to come in. And then here, down here, you're budgeting your expenses. You'd of course change these categories to whatever is pertinent to you. And again, this is a free template. You'll be able to, I'll just share a link to a YouTube video. You'll be able to go and get this and be able to make your own copy and modify. But I'm just starting with the foundation aspects of finance, then we'll dive into all these other bits. So your budgeting, which involves projecting your income. Some people will ask, how can I know how much income I'll make 2 months from now? That's the whole point of being a business. Businesses project, they set targets. And once you've set targets, you then back that up with strategies to get to your target. If you're talking to, if you're never talking to people about anything about your business, people don't even know what freelancing you do. You have friends you've been friends with for 4 years and they still have no idea what you do. They are shocked when they hear that you can do this or the other. You hear them talking about a certain thing and you know you can do it, but they are talking about someone else to send it to because somehow you hang out and you laugh, but they have no idea that's something you do. Then when you set targets, you realize, oh, I actually have to be intentional. That WhatsApp group, I'm not in there just for sending GIFs and the joke of the day. Every so often, I should talk about what I do and reach out to individuals. So businesses set targets, and as a freelance business, you set targets. Smart targets. Part of smart is realistic. They are specific, they are measurable, but they're also realistic. So you're not saying you want to make $2 million between now and the end of the year. Yet the first part of the year, you've barely made $200. Yeah, so you based on where you are and then make some projections and what are the assumptions underlying those projections. So you make projections for your income. You also factor in cost of sales. I don't want to get too much into cost of sales here, but in the tool I linked to, there's a bit of a description, but suffice it to say, cost of sales is really if you let me use the example of someone making a cake. If someone makes a cake and sells it at say 100,000 shillings, the cost of sales are the things is the cost of the things that they put directly into making the cake. So this might not be applicable for all freelance businesses. So that's why I'm not going to dwell on it, but just to use the example of the cake person, the cost of sales would be the eggs, the milk, the sugar, the flour, all that stuff they bought that they would use to make the cake. So those would show up here instead of showing up in expenses. So all of these can be directly changed to whatever is relevant to your business. When you make a copy, you can change this. Income sources, these are the different things that as a freelancer you do to bring in an income. Maybe on top of you have a band gig that you do, and maybe you also have other things that you do outside the band gigs. But basically the different income sources, cost of sales, and then your expenses. So someone asked about some of the technical terms. So net profit or loss. So here, that's one of the first terms where this really just takes how much did you make in that month and removes how much did you sell, how much did you spend, sorry, and then shows you, are you in green or are you in red? Yeah, red really is, you're making a loss. Let me, for example, change this amount here to something a bit higher. It will immediately show you that this is a month that things are not good. Your landlord might knock on the door a lot because the money didn't come in. So as the freelance part of your business, you set out a budget, you then start to record your transactions. You can modify these. These are just the transaction types that you saw here. When I selecting here, those are being picked from here. Then lastly, now the last set of technical terms I'll talk about from this segment before we switch into now getting at the rest of the questions is, again, as a freelance business, you want to know, are you profitable as a freelance business? So your total income will be shown to you here. And this is done for you automatically if you're filling in these transactions here as you ought to. Your profit and loss statement will show up for you here automatically. It will show you your total income. It will add it up from the transactions. I'm not going to get into cost of sales, but if you are tracking cost of sales, it would also show you your total cost of sales. More importantly, are you tracking all the expenses with the examples that I gave? Yeah, transport, airtime, bundles, all of that jazz would show up here in your expenses so that your total expenses are shown here. And for the year, it will be showing you, is the business, freelance business, profitable or not profitable? Yeah. And this can still work when you're one freelancer, when you bring on 2 people, grow to 3, it can still work. With time, eventually, you'd want to graduate to a bit more advanced stuff. There's accounting software. There are finance people who do a lot of this stuff for you. But even the finance people, when they come in, they need you to have some records. So from day one, something like this can help you. Just give you a bird's eye view. Are you profitable as a freelance business? Yeah. All right. So that's step 1. I hope that has made sense. So now I'm going to switch a bit into now zeroing in on some of the questions that have come in. And as I said, I'm going to try and make sure that we have a bit of time to come back to this. So one of the questions was around the technical terms. And as you can see, I've kept it light and high level in terms of the technical terms, but just some of the technical terms. Gross profit is your total income minus your cost of sales. But if you're not so clear on what your cost of sales, then you might not, you just have whatever profit you have here would be what you call your gross profit. Net profit, which is the term you'd actually work with a lot more, this applies to every one of you, is your total income minus your, sorry, it's actually your gross profit minus your total expenses. But for the purposes of the majority of you, since many of you will not have cost of sales, I suppose, based on what you described, then your net profit will just be to be calculated for you automatically here. It will take your income, your total income, to remove your cost of sales and then to remove your total expenses. But more than what the numbers are and what the definitions are, what are these numbers telling you? Because sometimes we hear these big definitions and we start to use them, but what is it supposed to tell you? Yeah. So your net profit just shows you, are you making money? Are you making money? So you could have gotten the gig, they paid you 1M, but because you kept meeting the client at CJ's for the meetings, and you are spending your own transport, you are spending your own airtime, you're buying data bundles, you ended up doing a job unprofitably. Yeah. So net profit shows you, are you making money? That's what. If it's positive, if it's above zero, you are making money. If it's below zero, you are not making money. Yeah. So that's I hope I've brought it down to the simplest terms as possible. Profit margin, I may not get into that, but it's these figures expressed as a percentage. These figures expressed as a percentage. So maybe to put it a bit differently, if my total income, let me use some round figures here. If my total income turns out to be a milli, yeah, okay, 100K. Let's use a milli, make it a bit. If my total income is a million shillings and the net profit is how much have you made? Yeah, this is how much you've made the business at the end of the day. So if I made 200,000 from the business as the net profit, then my profit margin is this amount here out of that overall amount. Basically, of the overall money that came into the business, how much of it was profit? What percentage of it was profit? So this individual here has a profit margin of 20%. 20% of the money that came in was profit. Yeah. So profit margin is an indicator of really how much was retained as profit in the business. So if you have a profit margin of 20% from income of 1M, it means you retained 200,000. If the profit margin was 30%, it means you retained 300,000. And so you might find some businesses have higher profit margins than others. Others might have very low profit margin. So it's also an indicator. You might think that you made a lot of money. So you might find one business had made 200,000, but their income was 1M. Then you find another business that made, let's say 10M, and their profit was also 200,000. So if you looked at just the profit, you'd think both businesses are equally profitable. You're like, you guys both made 200,000. And I'm using low numbers, but I mean, think of any number. if you look just at the profit figure, it doesn't give you the whole picture, because one business had an income of 1M and they made 200,000. Another business had an income of 10M and they also made 200,000. So if all you are talking about was the profit, you'd think the businesses are the same. But actually, because of the perspective of profit margin, it is clear that this first business is more profitable. Why? It has a higher profit margin. That means for every 1M, they retain 20% of it. These guys, with their whole 10M, they're only retaining, I think this is 2%. Yeah, it's a profit margin of 2%. So just by having those definitions, you get to see that you're not looking just at, they're not just numbers, they're not just things people throw around. They help you understand how well, at least give you a sense of how well a business is doing. So as a business, there's a saying that revenue is vanity. What's the second thing? Profit is sanity, cash flow is king. Revenue is vanity. When you have big revenue figures, that's when you start shouting on top of mountains, I made $2 million. But a more important metric, a more important thing to be on top of is profit. You can make, there are some large businesses, even in this country, that are still not profitable up to now. And there are even some large ones globally. Some of them, you use their apps fairly regularly. They are large globally, but they are still not profitable. So revenue is vanity. It's something we want to talk about, but profit is sanity. Once you're profitable, things start to move in a different way. But even above profit is cash flow. If you have that profit of 200K, but the customer hasn't yet paid it to you, and your landlord is at your door, you cannot show the landlord that, you see here, I have all these profits on paper. Yeah, so it's also one of those very key lessons. It's very key that on top of revenue, especially as freelancers, many times you'll just look at how much you are paid for that gig. You need to track this stuff so that you can at the very least know profitability. That's level 2. But after level 2, you want to know and be on top of your cash flow. Yeah, you want to be on top of your cash flow. That means you maybe if cash only comes in when you've delivered certain milestones, that means you have to deliver faster, or you get better at evaluating which kinds of clients will create cash flow issues, or you basically find different ways to ensure that you are on top of cash flow. You're not just profitable, but you also have the money. Yeah? Yeah, so I hope I've answered a bit of the technical terms. There are a number of others, but I feel those are some of the ones that you can work with, especially for an intro discussion. So your gross profit, more importantly, more importantly, your net profit, and then also your net profit margin. A net profit margin of, just to give you a bit of a guide, net profit margin of 15% and above is a fairly okay place to start. With freelance, generally, it actually should be a bit higher than that. But I know that this is a talk where we have people from different businesses. So you want to have 15% and above, 20% is even better as your net profit margin. Muruzungu, if you've made a milli, you retain at least 200K of that. Yeah, so how to deal with untrusted customers who are not loyal and they can't easily pay. That was also one of the questions. So, I mean, the thing is, it's one of those things you learn and get better at with time. customers don't come with a they don't come with a sign on the forehead saying that they are bad customers and they do not pay. But over time and through interaction with different individuals, being part of communities, you start to get better at evaluating which clients are in a strong, are more likely, let me just use that word, are more likely to be the kind that will actually come through and pay. Of course, there are some of the more obvious ones, the large multinationals, but outside that, for the rest, you would like to start to have some criteria internally. Maybe you ask for a deposit initially and then deliver using milestones. But even outside that, that criteria will really be custom to your field, and you just need to become better at discerning. I don't have a blanket answer for that one, unfortunately. But yeah, you just have to get better, as we all tend to choose to purpose to get better at, just discerning which individuals might tend to be problematic. Maybe just a tip. This is not always the case, but just a tip. The customers who will likely play down how simple certain work is, don't take this as a rule, just something to give you to think about. Customers who don't seem to understand the value of what you're doing, and it might sometimes be expressed in the way they talk about the work, playing it down as something very simple, it can be done in, yet you, who is the technical person, you know how long it takes, you know how much is going to be invested. So a customer who might not have a proper full appreciation of the value of what you're doing, it just might be an indicator. Again, I'm using the words very carefully. Might be an indicator. Don't take it as a rule, but that's one potential indicator. Another potential indicator is the customer who wants to bargain on everything. I'm not saying just the customer wants to bargain, not the wording. Yeah, I don't want this to be taken as this is the law, and then you go and write it on stones. I'm just giving a bit of pointers, but the customer who, I mean, you've given a discount and they want even to remove the last 50 shillings. It might be an indicator. It might be an indicator. Yeah, the customer who might even seem unreasonable on certain things, even when you go out to great lengths to explain certain aspects of what you're doing and why certain things are being priced the way they are. Those are just indicators. Just indicators. I think you've even seen these things. The person who walks into a shop and they want to bargain on every single thing to the last shilling. I'm not saying I'm not against bargaining, but I hope you get the point. I'm only giving this tip because I know it might help someone, but the key point is to the last shilling, the one who is squeezing. Yeah, it might be an indicator. Yeah. All right. I'll come very well. I hope at least it has helped someone, and maybe it might give you a bit of just a framework, not the law, just a framework to be able to interrogate some of these things faster and a bit better. So you have some benchmarks. I talked about bad pricing while pursuing passion. How do you crack that nut eventually? So getting better at pricing, one, having a bit of data, getting a bit better at getting better at evaluating this thing tends to take this long, and this is the rate involved, and then also looking at data and using that to guide the decisions going forward, and then involving other people, having someone else be part of the pricing aspect, because as an individual who is too attached to the work and passionate about it, and again could potentially do it for free, it helps to have someone else who maybe just goes over what you've come up with, and they help you with that aspect. Can even be a friend who is not as attached to your work as you. Yeah, maybe then they're not as passionate. They will not feel shy increasing what you've put there, and they won't be scared of certain things that you might be scared of in increasing. So I think having that third party or second party helps a lot, and then also using data. Yeah, looking back and seeing, especially data like this, when you see that, I was passionate, but I will not eat passion. The numbers are showing me that I lost this amount of money. So if I keep going on just passion, really, soon there will be other issues to deal with. So the numbers, and then having someone else that can support in that. How do I get clients in a competitive market? This was from you, Barrister. I think, Andrew, this was one of the ones that the sales talk went into great lengths in, and I know there is a recording of that. So I know I won't do it as much justice as the authority, the authority who spoke into it. But the bit I will share is, from our own journey, one of the things that has helped us, and again, I don't share it from the perspective of having arrived. We are still on a journey, but one of the things that has helped us is referrals based on the work. Yeah, so get one foot in the door and find a way to over deliver, especially to customers who understand the value of what you're doing, and then springboard from that to get referrals, to then do work for other like-minded individuals. So that can help you get clients and stand out. But then also, and this is one of the things I'm learning more and more, you didn't share what market you're in, but very many markets today have a global outlook. There's a global tangent to them. And customers in the global space can be reached and attracted using different channels. One of the ones we've used at Kanzu Code is we joined a particular platform where we joined as experts on that platform, and over time built a bit of mileage there and started to get work and then repeat work from those. So even in a competitive landscape, one, hone in, get the first people already if you have some, reach out to them and ask for referrals so you can get more. And then two, broaden your reach even beyond the confine of, say, just this market, because there's, even if you're thinking of the competitive market being maybe our ecosystem, for the freelance space, it's possible to go beyond this particular market. Maybe a third one I'll throw in, sometimes specialization can help. Initially, yes, we will typically start out as generalists. I do everything. But with time, for you to stand out, there are certain things you may want to zero in on and become the go-to person for that particular thing. So in that space, whatever it is, there could be a particular, they use the word niche for it, that you can hone in on and just become much, much better at that. It's scary, especially initially, but it actually does pay off in time. And there's nothing to prevent you after going down one to later go down another. But that third aspect also helps you to get clients in a crowded market. Then the third one, how do you get investors for your business and how do you determine their share? This is a bit more advanced and would need a bit more time, but I'll give the broad strokes to it. Before you even get investors for your business, one, you must have a business. If it is still a thing in your briefcase, you don't yet have a business. If it's still just an idea and there's no model, you don't yet have a business. You shouldn't be looking for investors because if they put in their money, they will take, and rightly so, a very large percentage of that thing that you want, yeah. So one, you need to have a business. You need to have a business, so you have a product, you have some customers, or I'm saying this very carefully, but in the market, in the context we operate in, we are not largely, let me use that, largely, we are not yet in the space where businesses are invested in based just on the idea. We are not yet there. If you know any that have had that success, I can be brought up to speed, but from the funding stories that I've been exposed to, especially in our ecosystem, it's primarily entities that are out there that already have some traction. So speaking to that specifically, how do you get investors? One, have an actual business, and the bits that have walked us through, that bit of separation, that bit of tracking, getting profitable, and then having traction. Those are the foundational pieces, because once you have that in place, you can then bring more people into the business, start to do a bit more, start to grow, because investors are not necessary. They are looking to invest and make a return. Yeah, they are not giving you money that you smile nicely and you should be in a toothpaste advert. No. They are giving you money and they expect to make a return. So if you can't even tell whether that business is profitable, then what are they investing in? So step one, have a business. Two, grow the business. And then based on that second step, and I'm giving just broad strokes, based on that second step, it's then possible to value your business. And there are different methods of valuing businesses. Some methods value based on cash flows, discounted cash flow, and forecast. So essentially, boiled down, they're saying you made this amount of money in this year, this amount of money in this year. We project that based on the market you're in, you're going to make this amount of money in these next few years. So the investor is coming to give you this amount of money. So they've valued your business and said your business is worth $1 million. So the investor says, I'm coming based on that value to give you $200,000 for 20% stake in your business. And again, it's very broad strokes, but essentially, one, have a business. Then once you get to the place of having something that's an investable business, the business will be valued, and based on the value, that's how the amount of money that's being invested is translated into stake in your business, equity in your business. It's based on the value, and even beyond those nice methods for valuing businesses, it essentially it eventually can come down to the person who shows up and has money to invest. That also they have a huge hand in deciding whether the value that has been attached to your business holds weight or it doesn't. So there's that subjective element as well. Yeah. So I hope that helps. How do you get? First, have a business, then you'll be able to get traction, and then you can have it valued. And based on the value, you then can have investors who would be able to invest for a certain bit of equity. And Andrew, if there are any extra resources around this, because I know the Innovation Village has powerful community, and even if I recall, there was something around this specifically. So you'll be able to speak into this. How do I know my worth if it's a first time getting a gig? You research, you ask. So it might be your first time getting a gig to MC at an event, but you're not the first person ever to MC at an event. So do some research. You might not always get all the accurate figures, but do some research, get some ballparks, look at people's wedding meeting budgets. I'm using that as an example. They have a wedding meeting budget item for the MC. So if you know that the wedding meeting budget had this MC who's been MCing for 2 years or for 10 years, then that's not the price you put. Yeah, you get that as a benchmark and you set your price not higher. Yeah, you set your price and start there. Start there and start building value, and you can still keep increasing with time. Yeah, so how do you know your worth for the first time gig? Research. Communities, yeah, if whichever bit you're in, there's always a community somewhere that you can join, and there are always people who are willing to give you some information. You're already in a community right now, being part of what Innovation Village has put together. You're able to research and get some pointers. I'll encourage you also go beyond just the internet research. Find some people, ask some questions. Internet research is a good place, but yeah, in communities, the people will give you some pointers. At the very least, they'll give you ranges. They'll tell you between this and this, yeah, and then you find where to start. As a software developer looking to raise capital for a venture, what strategies would you recommend to attract the right ventures and secure terms that are favorable for you? That was from you, Roman. So strategies to recommend attract the right ventures, community, be in the right communities. Innovation Village has a really good community for this. And again, this question has come back. So Andrew, if you have anything for us specifically to this, you will speak into it. Two, so the first bit I'll say is community, yeah? And then two, when you say, how do I attract right ventures and secure the funding and terms favorable to you? The terms are going to be as favorable to the extent that you have a strong business. Yeah, the terms will be favorable to the extent that you have a strong business. When you have a business that has good cash flow, that has product market fit, that customers love your product, and you have options. Yes, you're looking for money, but you're not looking for money that if you don't get money tomorrow, you're going to go out of business. Your business is generating cash flow and it can sustain itself, and you're looking for money to scale, you're in a much better place. You're in a much better place. So have a good, strong business, and then two, join communities. There are lots of communities. If you are in the financial tech space, I know FitSpa, which is the umbrella body for fintechs, financial companies in fintech, is a powerful one, and it's also doing connection with investors. Uganda Securities Exchange launched an EDALA program, I think it was last year or the other year, also around that, just finding businesses to match. So the community is what's going to start to get you into some of these conversations. you're not going to get an investor from someone Google searching and landing on your profile. It's really going to be relationships, and those relationships are going to come through community and these vehicles that just make events of this nature happen and put you before businesses where you can then start to pitch and then get better at pitching. Yeah. How can I make the most of the capital once secured to ensure it works effectively for your business growth? The business fundamentals. So knowing your business, knowing which levers drive the business. So there are businesses where the key thing that you need to do is double down on sales. You've built a solid product, and so you can tell from how people react and how people are loving it that this product is loved. I have product market fit. All I need to do is just put it in front of a lot more people. So that means when the money comes in, focus a bit more on sales and marketing, which are two different things, marketing and sales. Or maybe from understanding your business, you realize that we're at a point where our product is not yet quite there, so we need to invest a bit in product development, refine it a bit better, get rid of some interesting colors, make it prettier. So you put some money into that as well. So how can you make the most of the capital once it's secured? So it really has to start with an understanding of your business. But this aspect also, you're not going to operate as an island. Yeah, especially when you start looking for capital, reach out and get support, get some business consulting, have some business consultancy sessions where you go over your numbers, go over your concerns, get some of these questions answered directly so that some of the things you should focus the capital on are done for you. But also for many of the vehicles that are being used for bringing in funding, especially in this season, many of them have this component built in there. They have someone you can talk to, someone you can share numbers to. So many of these, if you get the community aspect I mentioned right first, yeah, the community aspect that I mentioned first, these follow-up questions would also be addressed. Then finally, what options are available for starting with no initial capital or collateral to still leverage financial opportunities in the software industry? So for software, it really depends on what you're trying to do, because here you're saying you're starting with no capital, you don't have collateral, but you still want to leverage the financial opportunities. I mean, the I don't use the word straightforward, but the glaring option is bootstrapping. What bootstrapping is the business is funded by revenue from the business. Yeah, so software, you go out, you build, you make a profit, set aside some of it to go for one or the other option. Another option is partnering. You don't go it alone, you get someone else. Maybe you're doing one aspect, they're doing one aspect. So partnering. Another aspect, maybe you find someone friend, family, who you sell your vision and they choose to invest in what you're doing. That's the friends and family route. If you're not going the rural community route, and maybe you're starting out and just want to build an initial version, which you can then scale. With software, those are the main paths that I see. I'm a big proponent for the first, the bootstrapping. It helps you make a lot of the mistakes on your own capital, and then puts you in a bit of a better position. That bit you asked of having favorable terms, it helps you be in a bit of a better position by the time you get to a place of negotiating and needing external funding. So if you are starting out looking for funding from day one, you are already on a back foot, because maybe you don't have a product, or you have a product and it's not tested in the market, or it's in the market but there's nothing to show that it is loved by people, or yeah, all of that jazz. So I'm a big proponent for the first, but should you need to explore the rest, there are those two other things I mentioned, as well as being part of community that can connect you to potential investors. Maybe just a side on this. The Silicon Valley thing is not yet a thing here. Since this question is about software and investing, that thing of you have a Mark Zuckerberg do his thing and then go and pitch and people throw money. That thing is not yet a thing here. It's really, really, really not yet a thing here. Software and tech are, are still viewed in a certain way. So investment does not readily drop into software just yet. Not to discourage you, but just to paint the picture of where we are as an ecosystem in our trajectory. So because of that, maybe just to your expectations. I know in the software space, especially because of what the media puts out there, you have Y Combinator and all of these wonderful things going on. But even if you just look at the number of companies coming from Africa that show up in that space, they are still very, very few. Very, very few. Even if you look at how much funding comes into Africa as a whole, it's still a tiny piece in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, so investment in software in Africa, let alone East Africa. East Africa, the hotspot is still Kenya, let alone Uganda at that. Yeah, I've put so many layers to it. I'm sharing that just to, yeah, just for your expectations to not be don't align your expectations with what you see on Netflix. Yeah, not yeah, it is what it is. So based on that reality, based on those brutal facts, you then have to operate a certain way and put yourself in a stronger position, not to get discouraged and burn out. But should you be the unicorn that ends up having the Netflix story from here, then well and good. That will be the wonderful and the welcome exception. But other than that, what has tended to be the trajectory on many of the tech startups is what I mentioned, bootstrapping and just figuring it out, and then eventually attracting funding. Okay, let me first speak to, yeah, so then to Sylvia. Could you talk about what it takes to become a freelancer for an activity that you may not have experience in, but you're passionate about, like you're a writer, but you're not passionate about? You're not a writer, but you're passionate about it. Okay, so you want to freelance in something that you're not passionate about, that you're passionate about, but don't get quite have the experience. Okay, so you have gigs coming your way, you're passionate about the thing, but you don't yet have the experience. Put in the time to learn. Put in the time to learn, take the first gig, don't price like the expert, price lower, and start. Yeah, so manage the expectations of your client and then put in the work. There is so much in terms of resourcing today that can help you learn anything really quickly. Of course, not heart surgery. I hope you're not trying to freelance in heart surgery. But for the vast majority of freelanceable, if I can use that word, skills, YouTube University, a paid course on Coursera, a paid course on Udemy, Udacity, it should get you at the very least 80% of the way to give a very good output with your work. Yeah. So if the gigs are coming, if the work is coming, take it on, manage the client's expectations, Some of the initial work you might do it at a slightly less profit. Even some you might not make money. Even some you might start off and do the work not getting paid. I shared that my own journey. I started as an intern, so I wasn't. I don't think I wasn't being paid as far as I remember. Yeah, but I was getting a lot out of that because I was learning. I was learning. I was showing up. I was eager. I was putting in the extra time. I was asking questions. So much so that actually even the very first person we hired in Council Code joined as an joined was an intern initially in another company, and then but he was that intern who went over and above, who showed up, who worked, and asked even for more work. Yeah, and he's now a senior engineer. He's called Andrew Carl Lema. He's still with Kanzu Code right now, but he started. He didn't have the skills, but he was that person who went over and above and asked for more and just kept putting in the time, and he grew. He's now a hectic performer. Yeah. So don't let the lack of experience, if the gig has shown up, take it on, manage the expectations, and then put in the hectic work so that you really deliver good stuff. All right, so I have just two last ones here. Order, stocking items. Sometimes you end up stocking quite a lot. This was from you, Janet. So here, this is where your numbers will speak to you. Yeah, this is where having your numbers will speak to you. If you have your inventory list and you have maybe the date these goods were purchased, and then you have your sales list. Yeah, over time you will start to see, you will see that I have these items here that were purchased during COVID and have not sold. Yeah, like over time, you'll also see just from the transactions, the things that you're selling, you'll see that these particular things here sell out really quickly. I'm selling 20 of them per month. So if I'm stocking, if I want to buy stock for 3 months or for 2 months, all I need to do is buy 40 of them instead of buying 200. So your numbers for your sales, yeah, sales by item per month, and then also your inventory, your stock, purchase dates, and so on. So that's very big picture, but to prevent that overstocking, it would have to be your numbers to guide you on that, because then you realize I have inventory worth 12 milli. Yeah, that money could have been used in something else. So let your numbers show you that. And maybe some items are being stocked and they're not moving. Others, you're understocking because maybe you have customers who come and ask for them and you don't have them. Yeah, so the numbers should show you that. Then the last question here was from Alinda. And this one wasn't on finances specifically. I know there are some other questions in the chat, so I'm going to switch to those right after this. What software languages would you recommend for someone to focus on that are making business currently? You might not like the answer, but depending on where your customers are coming from, if you expect to be serving customers in Uganda, in East Africa, I feel every software person should know WordPress really well. Be able to build a plugin, be able to customize a theme. It's not fancy, it doesn't have bells and whistles. But as a freelancer, you want to deliver value. Your customer doesn't care that you used Node.js and you took 2 days setting up the environment. And then when the version was changed and you now needed to upgrade the NPM packages, you spent 2 days solving merge conflicts, solving version conflicts. the customer just wants a site that works, where they can click login, they go in and change the picture without having to call you. And WordPress does that stuff really, really well. So when you say it's not popular, but I'm talking to freelancers, I'm talking to people who I've just been talking to for this past period about business. Your customer wants a good product that they can use nicely, well, and be able to get support without pulling out their hair. And your full stack JS tool that you built, it can work, but you take a lot of time to try and give that to them. And if they've paid you and you're taking 2 months to deliver the thing, yet you could have done that in 3 days in WordPress, really, tulikuchi. So, Alinda, that's what I'd recommend. Software I'd recommend to focus on initially. I feel every freelancer serving this space needs to know WordPress well. That one, I don't buza when I'm saying that. Outside that, the rest are additional. The rest are additional based on that. Additional building on that. Additional, and those others would come in depending on what product you're trying to build or which kind of customers you're serving. So I would say pick one language and stick to it, and choose not a language where you have a community around you, people that can support you along your journey. I found the JS ecosystem tends to have a number of enthusiasts. It's a bit of an interesting ecosystem, but the key thing is, do you have people around that you can reach out to and they give you support? Because again, it's a business decision. You're not, if you're taking the tool up from a business perspective, pick one, run with it, be really good at it, and deliver value to your client. When you have profit buys you the luxury to then go and pursue Golang, which you had is so nice. When you have profit and the landlord is not on your case, you have time to now go and try to pursue those other things. But my friend, if you are still trying to deliver the site and the client trying to pay you before you do the site, then pick one tool. And my recommendation, my really strong recommendation, is WordPress. Start there, dive deep, deliver value, get the profit, and then pursue the bells and whistles. All right, so on to these last things in the chat. Sure. What is this freelancing business before doing all these calculations? Joseph, could you clarify a bit on that? Or maybe Andrew, if you've understood the question, you could help me.
No, that question came earlier. I was the gentleman, I think he came on late. Maybe he was asking what kind of business are you using with the tracker?
Oh, okay, nice. Thank you. All right, makes sense. Now, I think for those who are part of the call, you followed along. The tracker, that particular tracker, was just a business. For the example, we used one that we developed as we were going along, but you would adapt it to whatever you are freelancing in. So from Laban, for those, you have a freelancing course. Oh, nice. Thank you. Laban has access to a freelancing course. Taxes compliance. Ha, ha, ha. What a question. Thank you, Samuel, for that question. So that's a really good question. And to be, from what I see here, it's the very last one. Then I'll hand back to you, Andrew, and you'll decide if maybe you want to take any more questions. So, tax. Yeah. If you are a freelancer as an individual, the tax obligation for you is filing what is called your income tax. And that you file with URA. You go to them, you on their site, if you've not gotten a TIN, you register for a TIN, tax identification number, and then you file your income tax. That's filing needs to be done annually. You're basically saying this is how much money I made this year, and then you send off, you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. You send them their money. I believe income tax is 30%. I could be corrected. We have wonderful Alice on the call who has a lot more experience in these numbers than me. So lest I take people astray, yeah, I believe income tax is 30%. The other tax that kicks in is if you're being paid by a reputable entity, say you've done work for a, a, a company somewhere, let me not put names to it. Yeah, you send them your invoice. By the way, in this process, I haven't talked about invoices, but as a freelancer, you demand for money using invoices. You don't call and send a WhatsApp message. You send an invoice. Yeah. So you send this company an invoice. When the company is paying you, they will do what they call withholding tax. They will retain 6% of that money. Yeah. So if you sent them a bill of 100K, they will withhold 6%. That's 6K, and they will send it to URA, so that and they'll send it against your TIN, your tax identification number, so that when you are filing your taxes with URA, URA knows that the other company paid your 6K of taxes. Yeah. So they then balance it out with whatever income tax you're supposed to pay them. So for example, if you're supposed to pay them income tax of 12K, and the other company already sent them your withholding tax of 6K, it means you only need to pay them withholding tax. Sorry, you only need to pay them tax of 6K. You only pay the difference. So so the other thing that comes into play is that withholding tax. So it's withholding tax, it's income tax which you voluntarily declare annually. I recently heard that there's a VAT threshold as well, even for this, but I'm still speaking as an individual. If you are a registered business, then the things change a bit, because if you're doing over 150M a year, then you have to register for VAT, which means when you're sending out an invoice, you add an extra 18%, which you're paid, and then you send that whatever comes in that 18%, you send it to URA. So VAT comes in if you are employing people, then payee comes in when you're paying them, or when you're being paid. Maybe let me touch on that real quick. Yeah, so once you get to that level where it's now a registered business and you're paying or being paid, then these other aspects come in, VAT, as well as a registered business. But at that level, I strongly recommend that you have a finance person. They might not come in every day, they might not come in every month, but have a finance person who comes in to review your books. As you grow, of course, you'll go beyond this Google Sheet. You start using software, one of those bookkeeping software. There's some really good ones out there. And then have them help you do the tax thing as well. It's a really good question you ask, Samuel, because the fact is, unless you intend to stay extremely small, if you intend to grow big, if it's a business you expect to be here for some time, then the faster you get get on top of your taxes, the better for you in the big picture. Yeah. Yeah, as I was answering that, I just thought of one other thing that's quite key to mention. When the business becomes a registered entity, even though maybe it's still a business that's freelancing, the moment it becomes a registered entity, the two ways you get money out of the business, either it's paying you a salary, or it's paying you dividends from profits. Yeah, so you don't just get money from the business as and when you decide. So those are the two main ways. Yeah, if you're still an employee in the business, then it's paying you a salary, or it's paying you dividends. And then as a freelancer, one of the challenges is typically what they call the feast to famine cycle. Feast to famine in the sense that maybe you have a windfall of cash coming, or projects, and then somehow after some time, there are no projects or very few. So that's usually referred to as the feast to famine cycle. And one of the things you can do to not get into that cycle is getting better at your marketing, and advert and your marketing generally. And one of the books I recommend there is the One-Page Marketing Plan by Alan Bibb. It's a very powerful book, just how you view marketing, with people retargeting, what retargeting for. So it helps to eliminate a bit of that. The other thing I would recommend, still in that big picture, is target to have recurring income. Target to have recurring income. Target to find a way to have either a product or a service that you can offer on a recurring basis. If you have a customer who is paying you monthly, that is a customer that you hold with gloves. Yeah, because income is not the same. Yes, in this document we've shown it as all income, but income it's not in the same league. Yeah, there's income that is just income, and then there's recurring income. That's a different league. When you have a customer who is going to pay you 500K every month, yeah, that's a different league of income. It might even be less, but the mere fact that it's recurring, as a freelancer, it's a bit of a different ball game. Yeah, so being very deliberate about having recurring income and also growing the recurring income, and also finding a way to move towards having products. You want to move towards having products because you want to get to a place where you're being paid without necessarily being the one showing up to work. And I recommend you read up productivized services, where you're able to offer a service, but in a packaged way. Productivized services, because those help you as a freelancer get to a place where someone can pay you recurring income without too much of your involvement as an individual. You want to step away from having to always trade time for money. So also you can build a product, because also that is another way you can go. So productivized services, products, and just holding recurring income at a premium. So those who have a full-time job, that is actually your primary client who is giving you a recurring income. So you hold them at a high regard because of that. They are giving you a recurring income that you can use for all these other things. Yeah. Yeah, with that, I'm going to hand over back to you, Andrew. I'm also going to just share the link to the YouTube, created a YouTube video that goes into a bit more detail of this document. It's on my channel, which you can subscribe to. I also have one for personal finances, but that one is under the Straightforward Financial Growth Company. So I'll share a link to that as well. But it's been a pleasure talking to you. Over to you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you so much. NASA is asking for a link to the Google Sheet you're using. Is that possible? Yeah, so if it's possible, you could share the links, the YouTube, the book titles. Someone is asking for the book title. I think it is one page something. One page marketing plan, Alan Deeb, I think. And then the link to the spreadsheet. Yeah, so as those are being shared, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to share one more link for in case one of you wants to be part of the Freelancers Lounge. For people who are not yet part of the Freelancers Lounge, let me share the chat shortly. Yeah, and then there's a whole playlist which is ready for all the sessions we've been having. All of them are there since we started up to yesterday. Even this one is going to be added immediately. So there is the link to the Freelancers Lounge in case you want to be part. Okay, and then yeah, productized services. In case some of you have gone through the freelance boot camps, I think it's not Chinese what productized services are. It's one of the business models that freelancers use to increase their revenue streams. Yeah, so I have been capturing some notes. I'm not going through all of them, but we started with having a mindset of looking at freelancing as a business. So you track all your freelance income as a business venture, and this helps you to maximize your profits and have a long-term sustainable freelance career. So that's where we started from, mindset, making sure you look at freelancing as a business. And then we were given a number of tips or principles. And principle number one was the separation principle. Make sure you separate your personal finances from your freelance business finances. And then principle number two was track the money, which is where we use the Excel sheet. I don't know if it has been shared or if it is shareable or if we can just make our own. And in the spreadsheet, we were showed how to track our finances, and he urged using Google Sheets because it's free and easy to use, and it can be a starting point. Yeah, so those were the two main foundational principles that we looked at, and then questions came in regarding so many things, and I believe they have been answered. I'm not going to go through my entire notes, but I have been curating, and the team has been curating. This is going to be a full chapter in the resources that we are compiling, so you can read it at the end. And also, it's going to be a video on YouTube that you can always watch in your free time if you want to watch it again, and you can share the link. With those few, thank you so much for coming. And Thank you, Mr. Kakoma, for joining us and sharing your valuable time and information with us. I'm going to let all of us go and have a good night. See you tomorrow, same time, same link. Tomorrow is personal branding, Victoria Nyanzi. Thank you so much for coming. I'm not going to end the call so that you can copy the links in the chat. Take your time and copy all the links in the chat. Then we will close the link. The gentleman who just joined the call, you're too early for the next one.
Andrew, maybe just ask, where can I find a playlist for the previous sessions that you talked about? I don't see that link. I don't know if I
Okay.
just.
It's in the WhatsApp. Let me share now. Let me share now on the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there it is. Let me also copy these
Maybe.
links, put them in the chat for people who miss. I think now I can end the call. If you've copied all the links,